share with you the key points that we talked about in our Setting Intentions for 2021 workshop that we had the other day. It was a virtual workshop. It was awesome. We had a really good turnout. We recorded the meeting and we uploaded it into our community at community.superhumantransformation.com along with all the worksheets. But it was such a useful talk. I felt like everyone needs to hear some of this information. So I tried to pull the key points from that I felt like would be most beneficial. And I want to give this to you guys so that you have time to work with it before the first of the year, right? Because this is usually a great time for a lot of people to work on their intentions. We're coming out of the craziness of the Christmas holidays. You know, we got New Year's left, but usually for most of us, that's not a big deal as far as like going off rails and you know, not moving towards our goals. So it's a perfect time to set intentions and really think about what it is that you want to do for this next year. So now before I get into that, I just got to make a shameless plug for our upcoming masterclass kicking off on January 9th at 10:30 a.m. PST, virtual and in person. And if you have not been through, even if you have been through one of these, but if you have not been through one of these, this is the latest and greatest when it comes to real food. This is the best of the best. This is, we call it Mastering Real Food for a Lifetime because that's exactly what it is. You're going to learn everything that you need to know to make real food work in a modern lifestyle for the rest of your life. Our goal is to get you to where you never question what you're supposed to eat ever again or how you're supposed to eat ever again. We want to bring freedom to the people that we work with because there's so much confusion out there. I had an initial consult over the phone yesterday, and this poor guy, it's the same story all the time. This poor guy goes in, has a little bit of some medical issues, and his doctor recommends a certain way of eating and some certain nutrition recommendations, and they didn't make any sense to this guy. Comes home, talks to his wife about it, and then his wife's doctor says something completely different. And then you look at what your friends are doing. Everyone's doing a different diet. Everyone's sucked into something different. The mainstream news is saying something different. It's like nobody really knows for sure what it is they're supposed to do. I mean, there's a few people out there. But the majority of people are very confused because I think all we need and want is the right information. If we knew for sure, and I was telling this to the guy the other day, I said, if you knew for sure that the information that you knew was what it is that you needed to do, then I think you would do it. But there's a little bit of uncertainty there, which keeps us from committing to something. That's what the SHT is all about. We're all about clarifying the confusion and bringing to our people what it is that works. It's based on ancestral wisdom, modern science, current relevant methodologies, and our methodology, whether it's nutrition or sleep or mindfulness, it's always evolving and updating based on what works and based on the latest and greatest that comes out. We are constant experimenters. And so everything that we put out is going to be the latest and greatest of what's going on out there. So we'd love to see you join us. You can join us by going to superhumantransformation.com or community.superhumantransformation.com. And you can pay a one-time fee of $3.99 to access this course, but that also gives you an annual membership into our online community, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. Or you can pay $39.99 a month, break it up into monthly payments for a year. Either one of those is less than $500 for the year. And just an FYI, when I work with private clients, I charge $990 for the initial 6 sessions. That's $165 a session. My discount rate is $95 a session. And so when someone works with me privately, first of all, it's totally worth it, but they're paying thousands of dollars. You're talking about less than $500 for all the same information that I use to communicate with my clients, how to live their most amazing life possible. And you have the benefit of the support of a community because this online platform is like its own Facebook. It's really amazing. I'll talk about it here in just a moment. So anyway, that's a shameless plug for our upcoming Mastering Real Food for a Lifetime. It's freaking legit. All right, so let's talk about setting intentions. If you don't think about what it is that you want to bring into your life, how the heck are you going to bring into your life what it is that you want? If you don't think about going to the bathroom, how are you going to go to the bathroom? If you don't think about making dinner, how are you going to make dinner? This whole intentions and envisioning process is happening whether you like it or not, right? The question is, what is it that you're creating based on what it is that you're thinking about, right? So why listen to me about this stuff? Well, first of all, we've been tinkering with this for about 10 years now. I personally put all this stuff into practice, and as I'm doing that, I'm always thinking from the perspective of teaching it to someone else. And so I pretend like I'm listening to myself tell this to someone else. And I'm like, does this make sense? Does it work? And then I put it into practice. I get my own feedback. And then when I work with clients, I get feedback from them. Where was this methodology steeped in? Well, I mean, I have read so many books over the years. Some of my favorites that kind of relate to what it is that we're going to talk about today, the work of Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, kind of popular now. He's got a lot of really good books. And then if you ever heard of Tony Robbins, Tony Robbins is NLP. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. All right, and a lot of people use it. So neurolinguistic programming is a way of working with the mind and the non-conscious mind, and it uses a little bit of hypnotherapy type skills. By the way, I am a certified master practitioner with the neurolinguistic programming. I am also a certified hypnotherapist, and I never use it, but I did learn a lot of great things about the mind from that. So combine, and then again, like countless books, countless workshops and seminars before I got into what it is I'm doing right now. I was in insurance sales, and I went through like just so many different versions of goal setting and whatever you call that kind of stuff when you're in the sales world, like sales type stuff, right? So combine all that together with 10 years of working with people, and it's constantly evolving. It is a really solid process. So oh, and then you've probably heard of things like The Secret, thinking about what you want, bringing it into your life. I like The Secret. What I like better is this book called The Answer by John Assaraf, because he takes The Secret to another level. He basically says you can't just, as far as The Secret goes, you can't just think about what you want and then all of a sudden it magically happens. You have to actually do something. There's the law, not just the law of attraction, there's the law of action, there's the law of gestation, which is like the time frame that it's going to happen. There's a couple of laws he mentioned in there, but that was a really, really good book. And then Atomic Habits, another great book that kind of contributes to this methodology that we're going to go through today. Okay, so why listen to me? Because I got 10 years experience, and we got all this stuff that we've used, and we're constantly fine-tuning it and honing it over time, right? So let me give you some examples of some things that I've kind of manifested in my life. And I just want to preface this with, a lot of times when you set intentions and you have envisioning and visions for yourself, you have to have a lot of flexibility because you don't know, it's going to show up at some point, right? You don't know how and you don't know when. That's the thing. And you have to be flexible with that part of it. And so for instance, with the SHT, I've been building this thing since 2010, 2011, and I knew from the very beginning that I wanted a community. And in the beginning, I had a very restrictive vision of what I thought that looked like. And what I could see in my mind was people coming together for dinners and potlucks and events and seminars and all these different things, supporting each other and smiling faces, and just like, that's what I envisioned as community, like having a lot of, like booths at different events and conferences and things like that. And we certainly had a lot of that over the years. We've had like our share of a lot of big get-togethers and dinners and potlucks and meetings, and but it just didn't come together the way that I was envisioning. And I realized that maybe it doesn't have to come together that way. And a few years ago, I kind of released my restrictive hold on it. I still had this vision of community and people supporting each other, but I let go of how that was supposed to happen in my mind. And I pretty much just said to the universe or my non-conscious or whatever you want to call that, I said, I'm just open to however this is going to work itself out. And sure enough, now we have this amazing online community. I could not be happier with it. I'm so freaking excited about it. This is our thing now. Like, it's like for the past 10 years, I've never had my thing. I mean, we've had our methodology and we have workshops and seminars and progressions, and I work with private clients, but I've never had this thing that I can direct people to and say, this is what we want you to be a part of and join us with. And so this online community at community.superhumantransformation.com, it is everything that I've ever wanted in a community, and it's completely virtual. So, and which makes a lot more sense to me now because I want to take this thing nationwide and maybe global. And so I need it to be virtual. There's no way I could have sustained like a local community. And we're still always going to have the local community aspect of it. But this is just an example of, it took, what, 8 years for that to show up, me constantly seeing that, and all the way, like, things are happening in a good direction for sure. And as soon as I let go of my restrictive hold of it, it came to fruition, and it just showed up in a way that I didn't expect, and at a time frame I didn't expect. And same thing has happened. I'll just give you another example with my relationships. Like many of you, I've just had a lot of relationships that just didn't work out over the years. And, those are very difficult and very challenging. But since I've been healthy and meditating and practicing mindfulness, I've at least had the awareness to try to learn things from those relationships and understand, like, it's clarifying what it is that I know I don't want and what I'm not willing to settle for. And it's also clarifying what it is that I actually do want, every time I went through one of those. And so I remember there was this point a couple of years ago that I just pretty much uh, succumbed to the fact that maybe I was going to be alone the rest of my life. And I was totally fine with that. I was totally fine being super healthy, super happy, dating here and there, and just not finding this epitome of what it is that I thought that I wanted in someone. But little did I know that all those previous relationships were clarifying what it is in my envisioning that I wanted. And as soon as I let go of wanting it to happen, then all of a sudden it showed up. And I'm in a relationship that I just only could have dreamed of. I was going to say never could have dreamed of. Actually, only could have dreamed of, only could have envisioned. And it's better than anything that I've ever experienced in my life. And I'm not naive enough to think that, it's not going to have some problems and things like that, but it's very different, from what I've ever experienced in the past. And I can say the same thing about income, about health, about fitness, about my mindfulness practice. Like every single one of these things, what I have been seeing and saying to myself is showing up. I can't even tell you how many times like something happens and I'm like, dang, I asked for that. I asked for that. I hadn't, and I've been asking for that. It just shows up at a time that you don't expect and in a way that sometimes you don't expect. You just have to be flexible with that part of it. Um, so if you had to think about areas to create intentions for, so you basically want to have a vision for yourself for every aspect of your life. Because again, it's better to be creating your life with intention than it is to be reactionary. If you're not thinking about what it is that you want in all these different areas of your life, you're basically responding to emergencies and crisis situations and getting what needs to be done, what has to be done in that moment versus co-creating what it is that you want with what's happening around you, okay? So I would focus, the main things that I would focus on creating intentions on is a fitness program, your real food nutrition, your sleep, and then some kind of a mindfulness practice. And then also some of the things that we're going to talk about here in just a moment about like what's wrong in your life. By the way, if you stick with us, if you join our community at Superhuman Transformation or community.superhumantransformation.com, we have an annual vision for the people that we work with. Every month we have a theme and we guide people through an education process, some experiments. We have the support of other people. And so throughout the course of a year, you're getting exposed to everything as far as our health foundations go. Um, let's just talk a little bit about how the mind works. Okay, we mentioned it before. Your mind is like this movie projector that is constantly projecting these little images in front of you that you are then moving towards. So like if I need to use the bathroom, I think about the bathroom and then I think about how to get there and I take my next step. This is almost happening at a non-conscious, unconscious level. But everything that I do at any time has this little image that forces me to move in that direction, right? So if I want to make dinner, I think about what it is I want for dinner, and then I think about, I have to go grab my pan, I have to get the utensil, and I have to heat it up, and I have to get the right fat, and like it's like your mind is constantly projecting these little images in front of you that you're moving towards. That happens at the moment to moment level, but it also happens big picture level. And there's a spectrum, like that you can think about things you want next week, things you want next month, things you want next year, and things you want for your life, right? But that's how the mind works. You're constantly projecting what it is that you want. And so it's very crucial that you think about the right things because otherwise you're projecting and moving towards the things that you don't want inadvertently, okay? So what's crazy about this mind that we have, as far as we know, this is the only conscious mind, or the consciousness that we have is the only thing like it that we know of in existence, right? No other life form has it that we know of, right? And what's unique about this mind is we have the ability to create, to invent things, to imagine things into existence. And we also have the ability to choose our thoughts, right? So, and I can notice when I'm thinking about the wrong thing and choose a different thought. So I can create with my mind and I can choose my thoughts and I can notice when I'm not thinking about the right things and choose another thought. And so really what happens when it comes to our brains and our consciousness is when we think about the things that we want, we activate the possibility for it to happen. That's the creation process, right? I can imagine something into existence And then the more that I think about it, the more I strengthen the possibility for it to happen. Because the more I think about it, the more likely it is I'm going to take an action step and move forward with it. And once I get an action step in, then I get some feedback and I can change course. I can change my vision as long as I'm flexible with it. That is the process of creation. You think about what it is that you want, you take a step towards it, you get some information, you change course, you change what you want. And it's a constant process of that. That's how you're creating your life, okay? So this would be, we call this living an intention-based life. I would much rather live an intention-based life than not, right? And this is the process. You got to create a vision for yourself, and you got to think about what you want on a regular basis. We'd say it's very helpful to have a meditation mindfulness practice in place because that cultivates the skill of being able to notice your thinking so that you can check in and notice whether you're thinking about what you want or thinking about what you don't want so that you can refocus on what it is that you do want. So then the next step would be focus on what you want, notice when you're not, so that you can come back to the present moment and refocus on what it is that you want. That's what you're trying to do on a moment-to-moment basis. And if you can do that, then your entire life is going to change. You are co-creating your life at that point. So in our little talk, we talked about characteristics of the non-conscious mind and the difference between the conscious and non-conscious mind. I'm not going to go through all that today, but I'm going to give you some key points here. So when it comes to the conscious versus non-conscious mind, I think most people have heard of something like that, but just in case you don't know the difference, my conscious mind is my thinking mind where I make all my decisions, and it's like the part of my mind that I'm aware of right now, right? The non-conscious mind is like the supercomputer in the background that is facilitating everything happening in my conscious experience. So I could use an analogy like if I had a computer, the conscious mind is my open application, like my word processing document that I'm typing into. My non-conscious mind is the operating system in the background, again, that is making everything happen. And there's some characteristics of the non-conscious mind. So our goal here is to, to make the things that we want, like our daily habits, our actions, our activities, our routines that facilitate health and the things that we're trying to do and move in that direction, we want to make a lot of that stuff non-conscious or unconscious, so that's just a part of who we are, so that we're always co-creating our life and we're always noticing, when we're not thinking about the things that we want, so that we can refocus on what it is that we want. And to do that, it's very useful to understand how the non-conscious mind works, because this will give us an understanding of how to create our vision statements, and it will give us an understanding of what's most important for us to focus on. Okay, so one of the characteristics of the non-conscious mind is that it's very symbolic. And this is why envisioning is so powerful, because a lot of what we're doing is vision-based, it's picture-based. So symbols, images, feelings, patterns, numbers, rituals, good luck type stuff, like all that stuff has a positive impact on the non-conscious mind. So if I feel like something is lucky, then it is lucky. If I set up a meditation spot that feels really good and it's got some little symbols there and some incense and it's in a nice little area, it's going to be much easier and more conducive for me to meditate, right? There's no denying that. The placebo effect is real. Over 60% of people given a sugar pill versus the real medication, over 60% of those people experience the same benefits of taking the pharmaceutical drug when they're not given the drug. So the power of belief is powerful. If you believe in something, I believe in the power of belief, right? So, but you could take it to a very concrete level. If I think about something like doing a perfect squat in the gym, before ever getting into the gym and doing a squat, the more that I think about doing a squat and I imagine myself in the proper stance and the bar on my back, and as long as I know how to do it properly, like the more that I think about it without ever spending time in the gym, the more that I am facilitating the possibility for that to happen the right way. I am forming neural connections and pathways. I'm facilitating a proper squat without ever doing a squat. And by the time I get in there to do a squat, it's much easier for me to do a squat. That's a very concrete way of looking at how the non-conscious mind is very symbolic. So thinking about what you want, imagining it in detail, trying to feel it, like it has such a powerful impact because you are facilitating that thing happening. And the more that you think about it, the more likely it is that thing is going to happen. Another principle or characteristic of the non-conscious mind is the principle of least effort. And what this means is that the non-conscious mind works on the principle of least effort. The conscious mind works very linear, it's very primordial, very primal, very protective, right? So let's say that I have a goal of getting some kind of goal in the future, right? My conscious mind would think, okay, so to get there, I have to first do this, and then I have to do this. I have to have this much money. I have to know these kind of people. I have to have this kind of software. Like it's very chronological and linear based, and it's also very defeating because that feels like it's impossible to accomplish, right? Or let's say that I have a goal and I'm like consciously I try to think it out how to get there, and I can't figure it out. Well, that's defeating too, right? Non-conscious, all I have to do is think about what it is that I want, and and then that will facilitate an action step forward, which will give me some information to help me change course. And so the path unfolds as time goes on. The way that the non-conscious mind works is the more I think about something, I have so much information coming to me from so many different directions and so many different sources. My conscious mind has to chunk that down. So what happens is the more that I think about what it is that I want, the non-conscious mind changes my filters to only let into my experience at an unconscious level the things that support what it is I'm seeing on a regular basis. And so over time, as long as I keep seeing what it is that I want, those things are going to come into my experience and my path starts to unfold in front of me. And so before you know it, the thing that you're thinking about shows up in your life unexpectedly in a way that you didn't expect, but all the while you've been taking these action steps towards it because of what you've been seeing on a regular basis, right? So that's the principle of least effort. You don't have to know how to get there. You just have to know what it is that you think you want in any given moment, which can change over time. And then you just have to take action steps so that you can get feedback and change course, right? Some other things that were really useful that we talked about. The non-conscious mind is because it cares about the evolution and the furthering of this animal and this species. It's focused on expansion, it's focused on evolution, and it's focused on community. And so anything that supports those things is going to be beneficial. Right? That's why having a good heart and doing good things for other people and supporting other people and not doing something that damages other things around you or other people around you is so beneficial because it furthers the development and the evolution of this species and this animal. And so cooperation and things like that are really useful. Another characteristic of the non-conscious mind, and this is important when it comes to verbalizing our intentions, is that it takes everything personally. Meaning that whatever it is that I say to myself or say, even if I'm directing it at someone else, is something that I'm experiencing. Okay, so if someone cuts me off in traffic and I get pissed off about it and I have some road rage, I'm the one that experiences the road rage. So even though I'm directing it at someone else, I'm the one that's getting stressed out about it. I'm the one that's feeling the effects of it, right? Um, if I get upset about something I see or hear on the news, right? That getting upsetness is not doing anything to change what it is that I'm hearing. It's only making me stressed out. So my non-conscious mind takes everything personally, which means I have to be very careful about what it is that I say and the presence that I put myself in because of the things that my non-conscious mind could be bombarded with. Now, another thing that we talked about is another characteristic of the non-conscious mind is that it doesn't process negatives very well. And what we mean by this is that you want to make sure that you're always moving towards the things that you want versus moving away from the things you don't want, because inadvertently you're focused on the wrong thing, which based on what we talked about before and the mind being this constant movie projector, I'm going to be inadvertently bringing in the wrong things into my life. Right? So as an example, if I have a financial goal because I've had poor experience, with finances in the past. Like maybe my goal is I don't want to be broke the rest of my life. I just want to be able to pay my bills, right? So my goal is to not be broke. And the problem is that I'm still focusing on the word broke. I'm focusing on a broke mentality, a broke consciousness, right? Versus I want to be financially independent, financially free. I want material wealth, material abundance. That feels better when I say that versus what I said before, right? So I don't want to be moving away from the thing that I don't want by saying I don't want to be broke. I want to be moving towards the thing I do want by saying I want financial independence, financial freedom, material wealth, however I want to word that, right? So again, it just feels different. Another example, if because of my bad relationships in the past, I say something like I just don't want to be lonely the rest of my life. I don't want to be in an abusive relationship the rest of my life. Um, I'm still focused on lonely. I'm still focused on abuse, right? Versus I want to be in a mutually beneficial relationship that's supportive, where we love each other, we're attracted to each other. That feels different. It feels better, right? If body composition wise, like I'm tired of being fat and overweight. If what I'm saying to myself is like, I'm tired of being fat, I want to lose this fat, I can't wait to get rid of this fat, the focus is still fat, right? But if I say I want to be fit, healthy, lean, strong, just feels different. Okay, so the point there is that we always want to focus our verbiage on moving towards and our thought processes on moving towards the things that we want versus moving away from the things that we don't want. Now, one thing that's very useful, we'll talk about it here in just a moment, is you can use the things that you don't want to help you create your positive vision statements. All right, so we have the characteristics of the non-conscious mind as one of our handouts in our worksheets. And so now let's talk about what it is that we need to be doing from moment to moment, and then we'll talk about how to create some vision statements. So we've already talked about living an intention-based life. The practice, the thing that you must try to do on a moment-to-moment basis to co-create your life is to focus on what it is that you think you want at any given moment. Notice when you're not focused on that so that you can come back to the present moment and refocus on what it is that you want again. And if you can do that, as often as you can do that, your life is going to change. It's impossible for us to not have negative thoughts and to get into funks and to get into ruts and stuff like that. But we want to notice it at some point so that we can refocus on what it is that we want. So I either want to be thinking about what it is that I want, working on something in front of me that's moving towards what it is that I want, or notice when I'm not so that I can come back to the present moment and refocus on what it is that I want or what I need to be doing in the present moment. Right? That's the name of the game. If you can commit to that, then your life is going to change. And we mentioned before, like it's helpful to have a meditation and mindfulness practice to cultivate the skill of noticing yourself thinking. All right, so let's talk real quickly about how to create vision statements. The first step, this is what I do with all my clients when they first come in, and I try to do this at least once a week. The first step is using what's wrong to focus on what you want, or using what's wrong to focus on what's right. So like we mentioned before, you always want to be moving towards what you want versus moving away from what you don't want. But it is useful to acknowledge the things that you're not happy with. It's useful to acknowledge those things that keep popping up. So as a first exercise, I would highly recommend breaking out a blank sheet of paper and just sitting there and asking yourself, what am I not happy with? What is it that keeps popping up that keeps causing me pain and frustration and aggravation? What keeps popping up in my relationship? Just acknowledge the things that aren't working for you right now. And you may have a big list of those things, but then once you get that list, you want to focus on one statement at a time. Take that one statement and then you want to flip it into the opposite. Flip it into the positive aspect of it. So once you have that statement of what it is that you know that's wrong, ask yourself, what do I want instead? What is it that I really want? And you may not have an answer right away, but just asking that question is very freeing and open-minded. And so eventually you'll come up with a statement that negates that thing that it is that you're not happy with. And now you're going to sit down every morning and read these positive aspects of those things that you came up with. And you're basically reprogramming yourself with what it is that you want versus what keeps surfacing that it is that you don't want. Okay? So that's one way to create some envisioning statements for yourself. It's the first thing that I always do with my clients. I do it every week, is acknowledge what is it that I'm not happy with right now? What's wrong in my life? What keeps popping up that's causing me problems? Acknowledge it, write it down, and then ask yourself, what is it that I want instead? What is it that I truly want? And try to figure out a positive statement that moves you in the direction of what it is that you want. Okay? The second way to create a good vision statement is, or add to your vision statements, is to use some goals to formulate some daily actions. Now, I've had a lot of different thoughts about goals over the years, and at some point over the past few years, I had this idea that maybe goals aren't that useful. I've had people come in here and they had a goal of hitting a certain weight, losing a certain amount of weight. And this happens all the time. People lose a ton of weight, but they don't hit that goal. And because they don't hit that goal, they get completely derailed and for whatever reason start to second guess everything that we're doing, right? I had a guy not too long ago that came in and lost like 50 pounds, but he had a 60-pound goal. And because he didn't hit that 60-pound goal, he got completely derailed. And I was like, dude, look at what just happened to you. Your whole life is different. But it's because he had this goal in his mind. Same thing, if I had a goal for a certain number of pull-ups, and so I'm working on my pull-ups and instead of getting to where I can get 10, I get like 8, but I couldn't do any before. But I get upset at myself because I couldn't get 10. It's defeating the purpose of the goal. So you have to understand, what is the purpose of a goal? The purpose of a goal is not necessarily the goal in and of itself. It's to give you a direction and to help you create action steps and daily habits and routines. That's it. And if you understand that, then a goal could be useful for you, because the goal is arbitrary. The goal almost doesn't matter. It's just like having a goal so that you can formulate what it is you need to do on a daily basis to be the kind of person that you want to be, right? So a couple of concepts we talked about was the freedom of flexibility with detachment. So I mentioned before, when I have a vision for something, I want to be very flexible with that vision. I don't want to be so attached to that vision that I miss out on other opportunities. Okay, so I see people all the time. From the time they were a little kid, they were brainwashed to think they had to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a dentist or something. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but I'm just saying, sometimes, as a kid, we get the single track mind on something that we think we want, but usually that's because other people are telling us that's what we need to do. And I have a friend that I was talking to the other day that's exactly what happened. Had this tunnel vision of what it is he thought he was supposed to do. He got into it. He wasn't happy with it, but because it's what he thought he was supposed to do, he kept moving towards it. And here he is, later in life, and kind of wishing he'd done something else, right? So what we want to do, I don't know if that's a good example or not. What we want is we want to think about what it is that we think we want, and we want to move forward towards it, take some action steps, and then we want to also be very flexible with what's happening, because once we take that action step, we can get some information and we can change direction, or we can even change what it is we think we want, because if we're not happy with that vision, we can change the vision into something else. So we want freedom and flexibility with detachment, and this should feel very freeing, because I don't have to get that one thing. It's the one thing I think I want, but I can change course. I can change my mind if I want to. Another thing that we talked about was the wisdom of uncertainty, because a lot of us are a little bit have some anxiety around not knowing what's going to happen, or not knowing what the path is supposed to be, or not knowing how to get there. And what we would say is that that's where all the adventure and excitement of life happens, is in the unknown, right? There is no way that we're going to know what's going to happen in the next moment, or the next day, or the next week, or the next year. We can have a vision for what it is that we think we want, but between here and there, there's an infinity of things that can happen. And so the wisdom of uncertainty basically says that that's where the magic and the excitement of life happens. So to bring it back to one of my examples, with the community, I was so tunnel visioned of what I thought a community would look like, I wasn't opening up to the possibility of something different. And as soon as I let go of that and detached from that outcome, then all of a sudden it showed up in a way that I could have never expected, right? So we want to embrace the wisdom of uncertainty and understand that we don't want to know exactly how it's going to happen, because that's where the excitement and adventure and possibilities happen. Okay. What else? So so that was all in relation to goals, right? So again, if I have a healthy relationship with goals, if I understand that goals are there to help give me direction, formulate action steps, formulate daily habits and routines, and also as long as I can have detachment from the goal and I can have some comfortableness with uncertainty, then that's a healthy relationship with goals, okay? So then I can use goals to formulate some positive statements. Think about what is something concrete that I want, and then try to figure out, okay, so what are the daily things that I need to have in place or be doing to try to achieve that goal. And so that's another way that we can come up with some of our vision statements. The final thing that we can use to come up with vision statements is thinking about the kind of person that we want to be in different areas of our life. And I'm pretty sure that Atomic Habits kind of goes through something like this. James Clear talks a lot about the kind of person that you want to be. So instead of thinking about end result goals, think about what's the kind of person I want to be in these different areas, right? So for instance, with fitness, do I really want to be able to deadlift 435 pounds and max squat 400 pounds? Or do I want to be the kind of person that looks healthy and fit and lean and jacked, and something along those lines, right? So if you ask yourself that question, what's the kind of person that I want to be in these different areas of my life? That gives you a really good idea of the things that you need to be doing on a daily basis. So imagining the kind of person you want to be in different areas of your life is also another way to come up with envisioning statements. And so what we recommend is taking some time, usually an hour is pretty good, to sit down and kind of brainstorm this stuff. And the first thing you want to do is use what's wrong to focus on what's right. Think about the things that are wrong in your life, and don't stay there. You want to flip those things into the positive by asking yourself, what is it that I want instead? What is it that I truly want? Right? And that would be part of your envisioning statement. Then you want to think about what are some concrete goals that I think I want to accomplish. All right. So, and as long as you have a healthy relationship with goals and it's not about the goal, it's about the daily actions, then write down the goal and then write down what are the things that I can do to move in that direction, some action steps. And you can create some positive statements around those. And then finally, you've got what we just talked about, which is basically um, the kind of person that you want to be, thinking about the kind of person you want to be in these different areas and describing that kind of person in those different areas of your life. And then you combine all that stuff together into what I would call a memorized prayer. All right, so I have what I call a big prayer and a little prayer. And that big prayer encompasses everything that we just talked about, all the things that I think are wrong in my life that I flip into that positive aspect, all the goals that I think I want to accomplish, and the daily actions and activities and habits and routines that I think need to be in place for me to get there. And then also thinking about the kind of person I want to be in these different areas of my life, right? So another thing that I think might be useful if you're struggling for how to figure out the different areas of your life is to sit down and compartmentalize your life into different life categories. Most people, it's going to be something like business, financial, fitness, health. You could break it down into nutrition, sleep, but really just trying to kind of compartmentalize your life so that you can create statements based on those different areas of your life, okay? So again, blank sheet of paper, working through that stuff. Living an intention-based life, I think, is really about creating a vision for yourself, having a meditation mindfulness practice so you can notice your thinking. You want to focus on what you want, notice when you're not so that you can come back to the present moment and refocus on what you want. We did talk a little bit about creating a daily practice for yourself. I think a really solid practice would look like this. You block out 15 minutes, you sit down, you do a little bit of gratitude, whether it's in your mind or you do some gratitude journaling, and then you set a timer and you meditate for like 5, 10, or 15 minutes. After that meditation session is when you break out your envisioning material, and every single day you want to read through all those statements that you created so that you are programming yourself with what it is that you want to bring into your life, right? That's a solid process that I think is going to work for every single person on the planet. One last thing, one last concept I want to share with you guys, and that is just understanding how the conscious and unconscious mind work as far as like the self-talk and seeing what it is that you want on a regular basis. Like I mentioned before, we have so much information coming to us from so many different directions and so many different sources. It's very difficult for the conscious mind to actually process that stuff, right? The non-conscious helps the conscious mind filter and chunk through all that stuff. And what determines our filters is our self-talk. Our thoughts and our self-talk are our self-programming, because our thoughts and our self-talk determine our filters. It determines what we let into our experience. And basically what happens is whatever I'm saying to myself on a regular basis, I look for evidence in my environment to support what it is I'm saying on a regular basis. So if I'm saying negative things and I see this world as very toxic and argumentative and combative and all that stuff, then that's what I'm going to get. If I see women as manipulative and deceitful and treating guys wrong, then that's what I'm going to get, because that's what I'm saying to myself, and I look for evidence of that, right? But if I flip that and I focus on the things that I actually want versus the things I don't want, if I focus on positive things, then my non-conscious mind, because that's my self-talk, my self-programming, because that's what I'm seeing on a regular basis, my non-conscious mind changes my filters, and what I let into my experience are the things that support that thing that I'm saying on a regular basis. That's how we create the life that we want, okay? I think that's all I got. I thought that was a really good summary. I think that was maybe about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I hope it's useful. If you got any questions, let me know. Like I said, full course, handouts, worksheets, all that stuff are in our community at community.superhumantransformation.com. Another shameless plug for this freaking awesome community. $399 to join our Mastering Real Food for a Lifetime progression kicking off on January 9th. And when you pay that $399, you get access to the community for an entire year. And you can also break that up into monthly payments by paying $39.99 a month. Either way you look at that, it's less than $500 for a year for life-changing information, life-changing experience, and life-changing support from a bunch of great people. All right. So thank you so much. Questions, comments, feedback, send them my way. We will talk to you guys soon.